Hey, everybody, before we get started here, uh, Connor and I did a remote podcast this week, and I forgot to hit record in Zoom. So I pulled a classic Tyler and messed the thing up, but that's okay because we have a really good discussion about an essay in the New York Times by Simon Parkin, and I gush over Indiana Jones and the Great Circle for 2.5 hours. So yeah, thanks for listening. Welcome into the Gaming Discourse. I am Tyler Frater alongside Richard D. the Cruz, who is not here today, and Chief Engineer, Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater.
Good evening.
It is Monday, December 16th, 2024. Go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/gaming discourse, patreon.com/the gaming discourse, where you can support us for $247, $10. Gets your name in the video credits, early access to our videos, access to our Discord server, and more. I have a new video up. It is a review of Valley of Shadow. It is a really good puzzle game that is an autobiography of the developer's life, the developer and his siblings' life. It's by Anthony, Nick, and Maria Vaccaro, about their lives specifically. It uses real family photos and real family home videos and stuff like that. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was an excellent puzzle game, an excellent narrative game. It's kind of a bit of both. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed playing it. Go watch the review because I talked a little bit about it last week. So I'm not going to rehash everything here, but yeah, it has really solid puzzle mechanics that are deep enough that I was surprised that the puzzles didn't get more complex, because I felt like there's enough there to have fun in the game. But when the game ended, I was like, oh, okay, cool. But there's enough like depth to the puzzle mechanics that I thought the puzzles were going to get way more complex, and they didn't. But maybe that's something that they can iterate on if they make other games or whatever. That's sort of mechanics they can pick up and put into another puzzle game or something like that, because I think there's more to do there. But yeah, it's a game about, unfortunately, it's about a lot of heavy stuff: abuse, depression, alcoholism, suicide, trauma, a lot of really heavy, serious subject matter. But at the end, it's hopeful. It's about getting past those things, about being able to find love in your life, mend, I think, like injuries and relationship conflict with the people that you love. And so while it does go to some pretty dark places, it ends up being a really hopeful and I think optimistic and inspiring game. So yeah, I would definitely go check out the review, and yeah, go buy it on Steam and play it. It's good. It's fun. Okay, so Richard's not here. We were going to do our Game Awards recap this week, but I wanted to do it when we're all here, instead of Richard missing out on the Game Awards recap, because I'm sure there's plenty to talk about. So we're just going to do our Game Awards recap 1 week late next week. So it'll be a Christmas present from us to you, our Game Awards takes. Although I am happy that Astrobot won Game of the Year, because Astrobot's a really good game. But Connor, you've had a really busy week for multiple reasons. Your partner is still sick, still not. I don't know. Have you talked to her about being sick and how she just can't, and how she just should stop being sick? Have we had this conversation yet?
If she listens to this section of the podcast and feels bad, I need to come slap you.
I'm kidding. It's a joke. I'm just kidding. No, it's fine. She's perfect in every way, and she's a light that guides your path. And I don't know, what else can I say? And and she's amazing. There, I'm trying to balance out the mean comments with good comments. Okay, so you've just played Stardew Valley then, and
yeah,
and you don't.
It's easy to get in sometime in Stardew Valley when
Farms
I can
and
just carry my
crops.
Switch around. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about like turning on TV, like doing anything like that. It's just I pick up the Switch, turn it on, and I can pause it at any moment. It's very nice for when you're busy.
Sure, definitely. Okay, well, I've played a few things. So I played Astrobot's Christmas level, which was a lot of fun. They updated the game. They added some platforming challenges that I haven't messed with yet, but they added a whole Christmas level with gingerbread men and snow, and the snow is also supposed to be frosting. It's very fun. And yeah, the level is really good. Most levels in Astrobot, Astrobot has like a couple different abilities that you pick up during a level. You can slow down time, or you get these frog punching gloves that when you punch, like the frog's tongue comes out and you can punch things far away. It's all very fun. But in this like little level, they give you everything. So there's a bunch of puzzles and you have to go switch abilities. And that's a lot of fun. But the game that I've been playing the most is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. And I'm here to say that Indiana Jones is great to play. I am surprised. I didn't really know what to expect from Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I didn't really watch gameplay footage, but I think like a lot of people, I was pleasantly surprised. And then after a while, I'm like, wow, this is a lot better than pleasantly surprised. This is like damn good. So yeah, it's set before Raiders of the Lost Ark. If I remember, I'm pretty sure it's set before Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yes, it is. Now that I mention it.
Okay.
It has to be. But anyway, but yeah, and it has a lot of different ingredients from different games. There's a little bit of Hitman, a little bit of Dishonored. There's some stealth. There's a little bit of Uncharted. I've only been past the first like level is sort of you're sneaking around the Vatican. So you have to sneak into the Vatican and then sneak around it. And you unlock doors and find clues and puzzles to find out why the Nazis are going after this thing called the Great Circle. It's like you're sort of tracking it down and figuring out what's going on. And that's a whole lot of fun. Troy Baker as Harrison Ford is very good. It's written and shot expertly, and it feels like a Indiana Jones movie. Not only does Troy Baker, I think, really capture Harrison Ford. He does a really solid job, but also it doesn't feel like I'm watching a Marvel movie. To me, it feels like I'm watching Indiana Jones. Like I'm watching sort of that them capture that character really well. There's one there's one scene I liked where Indiana is like, you find a clue and you're studying something. And in the Vatican, the Italian black shirts, the Italian fascists are sort of, they're there. I guess you could say they've like taken it over or something. So there's lots of tension in the air between like the Italian fascists and the Vatican, and like whether or not they're supposed to be there or whatever. And you're having to sneak around, and it's a lot of fun. But yeah, there's this scene where Indy finds a clue and he's like reading it, and you hear a door open behind him, and this Italian black shirt is walking in with a vase, and seeing Indiana startles him, and he screams and drops the vase, and the vase breaks. And Troy Baker in perfect Harrison Ford goes, "You have any idea how old that was?" and then you got to beat him up. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's very improvisational. So you don't have, so you can wear disguises. So like you can dress up as a priest, and you get a cane with that disguise, and you can bash people on the head with it and knock it out. Your cane will break, but you can fix it with a repair kit. But I don't think you have a dedicated melee weapon except for the whip, but I don't think the whip knocks anybody out. I think the whip will stun enemies or knock weapons out of their hands. It's not like you can just whip a guy and he just gets knocked out after like a couple whips or anything like that. You have to like punch him, but there's melee weapons all over the place, from like actual melee weapons like batons and hammers and stuff, to like improvisational things like brooms, dustpans,
a really old vase,
really old vases, paintbrushes, all these things around, and umbrellas. And it makes it kind of funny because you'll sneak into a room and there's like a black shirt that you have to take out. And it's like, okay, well, what do I got? I'll just pick up this umbrella, sneak up behind, smack him in the back of the head, and, and it feels very much like, because there's that magical scene in Indiana Jones when he's got the Germans, he's trying to like button the shirt. And the German officer comes up to him and is like, "What are you doing dressing all horribly like this? Look at yourself." And Indiana kind of shrugs it off and then punches him and catches his hat,
Yeah.
So it kind of feels like that. It's not quite slapstick. It's more like adventure-y and fun and exciting, It's not really like straight up
pulp adventure.
Yeah, it's not Hitman level where things just get fucking ridiculous. But they really do capture that sense of that pulpy adventure, grand, like Steven Spielberg, even a little bit of like George Lucas, Star Wars, whatever adventure, that spirit, and that I think is kind of difficult to capture. I don't remember who the composer is, but the composer gets the John Williams score down perfectly. They work it in perfectly, so you'll open the door to an old tomb and the lights will, like oil will run down and it'll catch on fire, so the tomb will light up and you'll hear chimes and like this magical da-na-na as you like see this old tomb light up, like very, very magical and fun, and like you're discovering this ancient mystery that's been closed for so long. So it's a lot of fun that way. But yeah, I was gonna say, so today I was playing, and so melee combat's, it's not necessarily super complicated, but it's really well done. When you get into melee combat, if it's a guy with fists, he kind of locks onto you and kind of follows you like right in front of you, almost like you're tethered to him. And if he swings at you, you got to press a button you can block, or you can try and parry. And if you parry, you swing back and, hopefully you hit him and knock him out, whatever, a couple times. If you have a melee weapon, you smack them with a melee weapon. Enemies with their melee weapons, they'll do the same thing. If you can parry it and hit them, or sometimes they'll throw their weapons at you. That surprises me a couple times. They'll just straight up throw their batons at you out of nowhere. And you kind of have to, you can dodge, so you can dodge out of the way. But yeah, like today, I needed to get to a tent, and there's a couple Italian bad guys, fascists, and I was like, okay, well, I can't sneak past them, so I'm just gonna have to fight these guys, right? So I was up on like a ledge. I jumped down, beat the shit out of one of them, and then the other two are looking at me, and there's like a table in the middle of us with some random assortment of like weapons, not weapons, but like, I don't know, like a wrench and a pot, whatever. So it's like I grab the first thing I find and I just toss it at one of the guys, and it hits him and it stuns him for a second, and the other guy gets up to me and we get into a bit of a fist fight, and then I turn around and run, and I'm running around the table and they're chasing after me, and like I turn around and I see a pot, and as I go for the pot, one of the black shirts throws his baton at me, but it bounces, he misses me, it bounces off something on the table. So I was like, oh shoot. So I just picked up the pan and threw it back and knocked one of them out. It was just like, it was very active and improvisational and really fun. Yeah, and it's like, it's funny and adventure-y, but it doesn't quite get to the point of Hitman, where it's like you've got like a giant banana and you're in like a gorilla costume or something completely ridiculous. But yeah, there is definitely a little bit of that. And then yeah, you can upgrade Indiana's, you can upgrade his stamina, you can upgrade his health, his damage. You find books. When you complete side quests, you get adventure points, and that's what you use to unlock upgrades. Then you also have money that you find, and you can use money to buy books, or you can buy like other things. I think actually maybe it's just books. I don't know if I've encountered like a store where you can get bullets and whatnot. I haven't shot a gun once. I've had the opportunity, but it's like when you pick up weapons, you don't get like an ammunition. The weapon that you pick up, you just have that magazine. That's it. Indiana has his revolver, and he has a few extra rounds, but it's not like you're carrying 108 rounds of revolver ammunition. So I haven't looked, but I probably have like 30 rounds of ammunition for the revolver. And if you pick up weapons off the ground, all you have is whatever's in the clip or whatever is in the magazine. That's it. So again, it's improvisational. It wants you to switch from one weapon to the next. Firearms can also double as melee weapons. You can flip them around and hold them by the barrel and smack people with them that way too. So it's and yeah, with your whip you can knock enemies weapons out of their hands or stun them for a second and go in for a quick takedown. So yeah, it's a lot of fun so far. I would recommend, like, if you're thinking about it or on the fence or something, like, you know, hit up Xbox Game Pass maybe and check it out. But yeah, it's and then yeah, the cinematography is all really good. The chemistry between Indy and other characters is really good. The performances are perfect. So yeah, I'm like, I wasn't sure how I was going to enjoy it. And then a couple hours in, I was like, holy hell, this is great. This is fantastic. So yeah, I'm kind of nerding out about it. And I've been like in a super Indiana Jones mood now. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything. I mean, I could go on for a while. It really does nail a lot of the atmosphere when you're, because my experience so far is just with the first level. The first level took me like, I took my time with it. It took me like 6 or 7 hours. And because it is like a Dishonored Hitman style game where, you know, you have these levels that are multipath and expansive. And then as you pick up things, you'll get keys that unlock new doorways. And, you know, so it becomes like more complex and more open, and you get more uniforms, which grants you access to even more places that become easier to get into. So yeah, it definitely has that an immersive sim quality to it. The stealth works perfectly fine thus far. When you're in costume, when you're in disguise, normal enemies won't detect you, but officers will. So again, very similar to, there's a lot of games with a mechanic like that. So you kind of have to, but you don't see, I don't think I have a no. Oh, that's the other thing. The map in the game is Indiana's journal. So you open up his journal and you kind of look down at it, and you can kind of look up and look down. And when you have his journal out, it'll give you quest markers. So you don't have to look down and walk around. You can just follow the quest markers. But his journal has everything in it. When you find a clue in a note, or that's how you track your quests, is he opens up his journal and you flip through it. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like I said, I haven't fired a gun once, which I think is a sign of a fun game design, because it's like giving me incentives to do all kinds of other stuff.
I mean, it's also thematically correct for Indiana Jones media. He doesn't use guns very often.
Yeah, and it definitely feels closer to the spirit. And I guess you could, like, I could have multiple times just mowed down, just mowed down a couple dudes, but it does feel like, you know, it's funner to flip the gun over, you know, put up your dukes and, you know, hit a guy or whatever. So yeah, I just got to the second part of the game, which is the pyramids. So you go from the Vatican, which is really fun, to the pyramids. And once you're in the pyramid, I just got to the beginning of the pyramids, so I haven't been able to explore the area around. But yeah, one of my favorite things, one of my favorite tropes in these types of games is the, like, when Nathan Drake or Indiana Jones says, like, the thing you're looking for, and it's like, oh man, it's a big deal, you know, because he's like, the Great Circle, we're going after the Great Circle, and someone he's with is like, well, what's the Great Circle? And he's like, it's one of the greatest archaeological mysteries of all time. He draws, like, it's in the trailer, he draws like the map, and he's like, and all these things, and the camera zooms in on his little oval. He's like forms the great circle. Dun-dun. It's like, oh my god, it's so exciting. It's the same thing in like Uncharted. When Nathan Drake is always the first person to find out what the bad guys are going looking for. He's always looking for El Dorado or whatever. It's like, oh my god, it's so exciting. But yeah, so they really nail that spirit, that adventure, and I think they nail like Indiana's personality. They don't make him sort of a generic action man. He is a bit of a nerd, because he's an expert in religions and culture, so he can sort of spot things, and he reads Latin, so that gives him sort of an interesting quality, and it makes him a bit of a nerd because he kind of knows all this stuff. So yeah, I'm really excited to play it more. It's a bad thing because I've got 3 games right now, 3 huge games: Black Myth, Dragon Age Veilguard, and now Indiana Jones I'm just chomping at the bit to get to, and I'm just trying to like rotate them in and out when I can. But anyway, okay, is there anything you would like to say before we move on to news?
I looked it up. The Great Circle takes place in 1937, which is between Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade.
Is it? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know that. Alrighty.
And the composer for the game is Gordy Hobb.
Yeah, Gordy Hobb, who I don't know what else he has done. I thought for a second it might be Michael. I think it's Michael Giacchino who did the Star Trek movies, the modern Star Trek movies, and did the Medal of Honor games. And you can hear a lot of John Williams in his stuff. So I thought for a second it might have been Michael Giacchino, and I looked it up and it was Gordy Hobb. And I don't know composers all that well, but I know he's not like
Gordy Hobb did Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
Yeah, he's had like a long career. He's very expansive. And if he's done Jedi Survivor, then he definitely knows John Williams, because obviously John Williams also did Star Wars. So
Halo Wars 2, Star Wars Hunters, Star Wars Battlefront. These are all things he's credited on. Star Wars Squadrons. So he's done a couple of Star Wars things.
Yeah, I guess. Okay. Well, okay, we will hit the news, and then we've got one thing we'll talk about, and and we'll talk about it right now. Thanks for listening. If you like our content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like and comment. You can find us at patreon.com/thegamingdiscourse. And our tiers are $2, $4, $7, and $10, and include getting your name in the video credits, early access, and access to our Discord server. Connor, you said something during the break. I didn't hear you.
Yeah, I said I hope you can't hear my neighbors.
I can't, so I mean,
okay.
If anyone in the...
I don't know. They're always moving around furniture or something. I don't know what it is, but there's always like this low, like dragging, thumping sound. Like, what is going on up there?
I'm sorry. Okay, so there's an essay in the New York Times by Simon Parkin. He's a writer and he's a host of the host of the My Perfect Console podcast. I'll admit off the top, I know of Simon Parkin, but I don't listen to My Perfect Console. It's just not something that fits into my media diet. I've got like 4 podcasts I listen to. I read everything by like Jason Schreier and Tom Warren. So it's like I've got plenty of people that I read and listen to. And it's so I just want to say I'm not necessarily, I know of him, but I'm not necessarily familiar with his work. Because I have too many people and too many things that I listen to and read. That's not to say that I'm smart or anything. I also spend 10 hours playing Indiana Jones, so I could fit it in, but it's just like I have to balance the things out. Reading about the industry and actually playing games, you got to balance that out. But anyway, so yeah, it's an essay titled "Read This Before Buying That Video Game." It was published on December 12th. I'm gonna read it. We're gonna react to it. It's about live service economies, how they're structured, and stuff like that. I may skip around a little bit, but it's not that long, so I may just read the whole thing here. And yeah, okay, we'll start off. So he begins, when I was a child in the 1990s, I began my campaign for my first video game console several months before Christmas. My parents, like some parents who came before them, and most who came after, were wary. They associated video games not so much with the thrilling secrets of Super Mario's undulating hills or the literary flair of Infocom's interactive fiction games, but instead with vague ideas of truancy, delinquency, and probable ruin. My grandmother, a pragmatic woman, took pity. She secreted under the tree a Game Boy and a copy of the Soviet-era miracle that is Tetris. In the years that have followed, video games have evolved in astonishing ways, often expanding to fill the advancing technologies that power them. Tetris remains as potent as ever, but today's players are drawn to video games that function more like social media platforms than discrete interactive stories. Playpins that employ psychological tricks and gambling adjacent techniques to dissuade their audience from immigrating to rival virtual worlds. It's a creative shift occasioned by economic concerns, one that has come to actively harm the medium and those players most deeply embedded in it. While the creators and publishers bear responsibility as stewards of that field, so too do I and other parents whose choices this holiday season help shape that culture. So starting off here, and this is a discussion again that we have with Richard, but Richard's not here because Richard's at the forefront of gaming retail. He doesn't work he works at a collector shop, so he's not selling new stuff, but he's still pretty, he still knows what he's talking about. And he talks about oftentimes like, do parents know what V-Bucks are with Fortnite? Do they know what Roblox is? Do they know how the economics behind Roblox work? Or, are parents throwing something in front of their kid so that they can get their kid to shut up, And I'm sure there's a little bit of that. As parents, I think obviously you're responsible for your child and obviously what they do and their media diet and all that. And I don't know if it's ever been harder than it is right now, considering everything that's available on the internet. One thought that did pop into my head, and this may or may not be relevant, but I have struggled with, because when it comes to microtransactions and live service economies and stuff like that, I just don't think the solution is ever to blame it on the consumers, right? Quote unquote. I know not everybody loves the term consumer. Blame it on the people that buy it, I guess. I just don't think that's a solution. I don't think telling 10,000 people all in different walks of life to change what they do with their disposable income, I don't know if that's effective. I don't know if that's worthwhile. I think it's better to go for the source. I think these companies that employ these live service tactics, they know what they're doing. It's a little like climate change. It's like, tomorrow if 10 million people, if 150 million people in the United States decided to start recycling, that'd be great, but trying to run that sort of campaign and get that many numbers, that's so unwieldy and so massive that it can't be possible. But what you can do is tell 3 oil companies to quit being douchebags, and maybe that's the solution, especially when those 3 oil companies disproportionately out pollute the 150 million Americans or whatever. So it's like with microtransactions and stuff like that, there is a responsibility to the parent, to their individual kid. And that's not just with video games, that's just across life, being a parent, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
But when we talk about solutions to things like this, to these sort of business practices that we're not fans of, I don't think a solution is to point the finger at people that are buying them. $30 to you and me is a lot of money, maybe, but like $30 to some people is nothing, and they'll gladly dump that much to get a skin in Overwatch 2 or whatever. Yeah. So it's just not effective. However, it doesn't matter who Overwatch 2 is selling a skin to. Overwatch 2 is bad for doing it. So it's like the source of it is a much easier thing to diagnose than it is to wrangle cats and try and tell people, not to spend money. Okay.
Before you continue.
Yeah.
I just want to throw in this, that the sentence he wrote in there, but today's players are drawn to video games that function more like social media platforms than discrete interactive stories, playplanes that employ psychological tricks and gambling adjacent techniques to dissuade their audiences. Blah, blah, blah. I think that is a gross oversimplification of the video game industry and kind of a pessimistic view of how people approach video games. Because I don't think people are necessarily drawn to social media style games rather than discrete interactive stories. It's more of that's what's being broadly put out
Yeah.
and being pushed.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. The market has been flooded by live service economies that you have to. That's the thing about demand is what is synthetic, right? It's like
people say the age old adage, vote with your wallet. Well, that can only go so far,
yeah,
because
we just discussed that. Yeah,
if every company decides to go with one style, like if every company decided to do loot boxes, which they did at one point in time, um, it doesn't matter where you put your money, you're still buying into that idea for them.
yeah,
And yes, you could say, well, then just don't play video games. Well, that's fatalist and just a terrible idea, just to be like, well, I guess we'll just not do anything now.
well, yeah, and I think Phyllis, that's not a logic that
Mm-hmm.
you're just going to lose yourself in logical contradictions if you try to exist like that. I
Yeah.
feel like across not just in video games, but just across anywhere, any forms of entertainment or consumption,
Any form
in life,
of
existence.
economy.
Yeah. I do think that you're right in that, like, are players drawn to those things, or are they just flooding the market? Synthetic demand. Do players really want this? That's something I would argue. No, I think if we went to a different universe where, or not even that, if I was able to flick my fingers and snap my fingers and go, I'm gonna offer you Overwatch 2, and all of the skins are free right off the bat,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to pay $70 for it, or you pay $30 and there's a live service economy attached. I wonder how many people would prefer the $70 option where everything is included rather than the $30 with live service. Maybe a lot of people are fine with the live service. I don't know. But I'd take a wager it's not like overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's like, is it a demand, or is that just the world players know? Tons of people started playing video games with Modern Warfare 2, and so they have grown up in a world where where the live service economics have sort of developed along with
Mm-hmm.
their adolescence. So they don't have, I don't know, casual audiences don't have a frame of reference for what a game is like without a live service component. And I think games are better without them. So yeah, anyway. Okay, moving on here. Actually, let me take a swig of water real quick. Okay, I promise it's water.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on. Yeah, it's just a gigantic gigantic thing of whiskey the size of my face, and I'm just chugging it. Just going to town. Okay. Video game makers like novelists, filmmakers, and Netflix executives. I really hate that all those are grouped together. But anyway, it's not bad writing or anything. It's just executives aren't artists. Get them the fuck out of here. But anyway, have always employed a raft of techniques to keep their audiences engaged. But there is an especially close link between engagement and economics in video games, where for the first 2 decades of the medium's existence, most players paid to play by the coin. In the 1980s, an executive at Atari, the company behind Pong, remarked that the ideal arcade game should provide a short burst of entertainment before frustrating players, so they insert another quarter to continue. Something easy to pick up, hard to master, and with a difficulty curve that followed the trajectory of a mountain slide. In the early 2000s, after video games became widely interconnected, publishers discovered that keeping players engaged for as long as possible could even be more profitable than trying to move them on to their next product as quickly as possible. At the peak of its popularity in 2010, the online fantasy game World of Warcraft had over 12 million subscribers, a population roughly equivalent to that of Senegal at the time, all of whom paid a monthly fee to live out digital lives in the game. Players were incentivized to join clans of like-minded players and pursue their shared goals with the determination of a sports team hoping for a promotion. While through the 90s and early 2000s, designers had vied with one another to attract players through novel, imaginative design, now, for many, the main goal was to keep players engaged for months, even years at a time, mainly through familiarity. It is interesting that he says, hoping for a promotion, because American sports fans have no idea what that means. They're like, promotion? What the hell are you talking about? Are they all in the AAA or something? No. I'm sure there's plenty of American sports fans that know.
I don't know. I think, again, with publishers discover that keeping players engaged for as long as possible could be more profitable, that is more of a recent phenomenon than the early 2000s.
I would tend to,
because like even bordering
adoption.
like 2010. Yeah, but even bordering 2010, that would still be a novel concept in game industry.
Yeah, because the first big live service game, and so obviously you could categorize World of Warcraft and EverQuest as like a live service game. You could categorize,
they absolutely are.
MUDs, multi-user dungeons, I guess, because they were online and active and they were like living spaces. So it depends on how you define like a quote unquote live service, obviously. But I think like the modern colloquialism of live service, the first game that really, I think, popularized it massively was Destiny. Now, that wasn't the first game to employ live service economies.
No.
The first game I remember to have a season pass was one of the Gears of Wars pretty early on. And that it may have been Gears of War 3, maybe it was 4. If it was 4, that may have come after Destiny, or right around the same time as Destiny. But that one also had loot boxes. But anyway, so Destiny is sort of the progenitor to the modern live service economy as we know it today. Because like World of Warcraft and EverQuest and things like that, while sort of fitting that mold, I think they were considered different things. Especially because the games industry, there was more of a distinction between like console gaming and PC gaming, right? PCs and consoles were like really two separate things. Especially back in like the 2000s, in the late 90s into the 2000s. And it's not until the past 10 years, especially with Xbox publishing its games both on PC and the consoles, where sort of those markets have kind of merged. Although still distinct, they are much more closely aligned today, way more closely aligned today than they were back then. So it's like, yeah, I'm not saying he's wrong. He's correct in pointing out like the history of it can be traced back to World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
But when we talk about like Call of Duty's, Madden, stuff like that, those games were not thought of, because World of Warcraft was thought of as a live service game to begin with at its inception, right? That's not what Madden was. That's not what that's not what Call of Duty was. So there's a lot of franchises that have adopted that those economic policies, and we want to talk about it like they're countries, because like Destiny sort of was started with that intention, and now it's been mass adopted into genres and markets where you were correct. It didn't really exist back in the early 2000s. It only picked up with around 2010 is a good marker. I would say maybe even like 2012 if we're being like really pedantic, maybe 2013.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay. Let me find my space. Okay, here we go. With so many virtual worlds competing for our attention, publishers did anything they could to lure players away from rival games, rather than sell a video game for a fixed and profitable price like a hardcover book or a Blu-ray disc. Many began to offer their titles free, at least in the beginning. Once invested in the game, players could then purchase a season pass, a kind of IOU from the publisher promising to bestow a clutch of rewards such as digital costumes, potent weapons, and other benefits in exchange for free. The allure, no longer the creativity so much as the promise of virtual trinkets. Fortnite, released in 2017, refined the season pass model, which helped generate more than $9 billion in revenue for its creator, Epic Games, during its first 2 years. This extravagant success had a profound effect on the industry's major players, who began to see their games no longer as discrete pieces of entertainment, but more like destinations, such as Instagram or Facebook, to which users would ideally log in every day. Jacob Novak, former director of business development at Square Enix, once the largest Japanese publishers of video games, recently pointed out that pre-Fortnite, most players would, like readers of books, finish one game before moving on to the next. Today, while the industry continues to grow, he wrote that a smaller number of games are developing stickiness seen in social media companies. Now, this is true. People play fewer games today. Now, the question that we have talked about is, are people playing fewer games, or do we have a population, do we have a market? Let's say this market had 100 people in it, and these 100 people were the people that consumed games in the ways that normal people consume movies, right? Movie comes out this week, you go and watch it. Another movie comes out 2 weeks from now, you go and watch that movie. You don't watch the same movie every week, right? So there was a market of people that played games that way. You played Half-Life, then you played Halo, then you played Halo 2, Half-Life 2, then you played Baldur's Gate, whatever. Okay. So there was that market. Then Modern Warfare 2 happened, right? And all of a sudden gaming went from sort of kind of niche to mainstream to massively mainstream, right? And all the teenagers got in on it. Okay, so the more people play video games than ever now. So is it that people are playing fewer games, or is it that what the market has added is what has globbed on to that first set of 100 people is now 10,000 people whose behaviors and diets are different? That is a thesis that I think there could be college papers written about. And I don't know if we really have the data sets to know that. But I know that more people play, like he just said, it wasn't until 2010 or whatever when 12 million people were WoW. That's when WoW was at like its height, right? So more people are, yeah. So I think it's important to define that, because once we understand the reasons for those economic trends, then we can sort of diagnose those economic trends, and then we can show that it is not that all of a sudden everybody is doing a thing. It is just the kids that grew up with Minecraft in 2010 have only known video games to be something that you have to go and spend all your time in, right? Their perception of games is different. But that is, this is not, and I'm not poo-pooing his paragraph, but this is not a new thing. Newzoo, market research firms like Newzoo, the NDA group, or wait, no, they're not the NDA group anymore. Circana. They have talked about people playing fewer games, and when they release their recaps, it's Fortnite, it's Roblox, it's FIFA, right? So yeah, that's not an incorrect thing to say, but I am curious about the data behind those markets, which we may never know, because I don't know who was tracking how many people were playing games back in 2000 and 2005, and there may be data sets out there. Maybe I should try finding them. I have, but I've never been able to find. Anyway, continuing, the industry's prioritization of these live service games, the term for video games that never fully end, mirrors to a degree Hollywood's investment in forever universes. Marvel and Star Wars provide familiar characters and settings in which to tell endless stories while simultaneously promoting merchandise and filling theme parks. Where film studios rely on storytelling and aesthetics to keep viewers plugged in, video game designers have an arsenal of additional psychological mechanisms at their disposal, many of which tap into our common fear of missing out. Game design is often no longer predominantly the task of crafting challenges that elicit joy, delight, and surprise, or the noblest of creative goals, encouraging people to see the world from an unfamiliar perspective. It is primarily the job of building machines to keep players engrossed and spending, in many cases, by grinding out repetitive tasks rather than ones that encourage creative or exploratory play. That trend began, arguably, with games like World of Warcraft, but in recent years it has become astonishingly refined by the world's brightest designers. I'm going to skip ahead here to this paragraph here. Like most executives working in creative media within a capitalist framework, the video game industry's leaders prioritize short-term shareholder profits over broader concerns about cultural relevance or impact. But it is notable that the dominant and most highly profitable video games of this moment are built upon experimental ideas that originated on the margins of the commercial industry. Minecraft, released in 2011, followed few of the fashionable rules of game design. The game had no clear goals or instructions, and its rudimentary presentation defied the fashion at the time for even more realistic on-screen depictions. 3 years later, Microsoft acquired Minecraft's developer, Mojang, for $2.5 billion. I'm going to skip to the end here. There is still much invention and creativity within the independent sector, which is filled with designers who struck out on their own, having become disillusioned with the mainstream. Still, it is insufficient. For the health and survival of the industry built on imagination and invention, the most moneyed publishers, as leaders within the field, must take an enlightened lead and invest in projects that prioritize creativity and long-term cultural value as much as shareholder value. And those of us considering which games to buy this holiday season, either for ourselves or our loved ones, should be mindful that our consumer choices shape our culture and ourselves in profound ways. Okay, and again, that's Simon Parkin, New York Times. Read this before buying that video game. We'll put it in the description if you would like to read more. Okay, do you have any big takeaways now that we've kind of gone through it here?
I don't know, that a lot of this reads as this is the way the industry is. And while that's partially true, I don't know, it feels like it feels like he's painting it as if this is what the video game industry is. There's very few people that are doing anything different. It's all live service games. It's all like monetization tails. That's all that companies are going for. And that's just blatantly not true. It is a majority. It is like the majority of like major companies are, but I don't know, that isn't true to the industry as a whole. He's talking about a section of the industry treating it as a monolith.
Well, I think if you look at it from an economic standpoint, it's pretty inarguable because again, the games that make the most money are sports games, Fortnite, Roblox, Call of Duty, right? So the most popular games, the most financially influential games, the games that people, investors, people with money see drawing in profit are the live service games, right? And I talked about this. You know, another discussion is, does this create a self-fulfilling prophecy? You know, everybody sees that live service games make money, so they just keep making live service games. But it's like if the only thing you're selling is live service games, and of course the only thing that's going to make money is live service games. So it's like, are they making money because they're live service, or are they making money because, you know, casual audience are sort of inundated with it? Call of Duty was making money before it was live service. It just makes more money now because people are fine spending their discretionary income on it. And again, I don't like the way... Personally, I don't agree with the sentiment that we have to police our own, that every single person out there has. I don't know. If you want to do it personally, that's fine. Like, obviously, I don't think Simon Parkin here is saying, and if you buy Path of Exile 2, you're a bad person. Like, I don't think he was pointing fingers. I think it's a personal thing. If you make a personal choice, that's fine. That's you. But that cannot be the solution. The solution cannot be to go around and evaluate everyone's discretionary income and say, here are the games you should and shouldn't buy, right? I don't think that works, especially living in a capitalist economy. Like, I just don't. I think the thing is, no, Activision knows what it's doing. It knows it's being manipulative. It knows it's being shitty. EA knows what it's doing with loot boxes. It knows it's being manipulative and shitty. How about they stop being manipulative and shitty instead of them with the power and the money and the millionaire and billionaire executives? Why do I, some guy with a tiny YouTube channel, have to be the person that upends my life to solve some like kind of economic problem? No, thank you. And yeah, does Parkin undersell innovation in gaming? Yes. And I think maybe that's what you're hinting at is, so I made an impromptu list. I thought to myself, how many games would I describe as innovative that came out in the past 10 years, the past decade? So since 2014, right? Innovative does not necessarily mean good or perfect, but games that were different, interesting, that did things really well, that had really interesting design, sometimes created new things, sometimes did a twist on things that no one really expected and thought it was awesome or whatever. So I wrote down some games since that came out since 2014. One of these is already wrong because it came out in 2013. But Witcher 3, Disco Elysium, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom, which Simon, I think, lists in his essay somewhere. Half-Life Alyx, Boneworks, VTOL, Onward, Baba Is You, Titanfall, Metal Gear Solid 5, Destiny. I think Destiny was on some levels innovative. PUBG, Undertale, No Man's Sky, 2017's Prey, Return of the Obra Dinn, Alan Wake 2, Elden Ring, The Forgotten City, Death Stranding, Hellblade, I can go on, Metro Last Light, Pentiment, Talos Principle 2, Lethal Company, Phasmophobia. Here's a maybe section. Baldur's Gate 3, I think Indiana Jones and the Great Circle may get up there. Astrobot, Frostpunk, Cyberpunk, Hades, Red Dead 2, Super Mario Galaxy, Super Hot. These are just off the top of my head games that I thought innovative, different, right? We could debate, but the point I'm making here is if you know the industry and if you follow games, I feel like you can name a shit ton of games. There's a bunch of indie games that I have completely forgotten about, I'm sure. I'm sure you can name games that are incredible. So, like, is he overselling the state of live service economies? I guess it depends on how you look at it. I think from an economic standpoint, no, because, you know, when executives at fucking Wells Fargo are asking Yves Guillemot why Skull and Bones isn't free to play, what they see is Roblox, and they think every game is Roblox, and they're J. Jonah Jameson slamming their hand down and going, I want pictures of Spider-Man, right? And smoking a big fat Cuban, like, I want pictures of Roblox, right? So it's like, the economic powers at play here are undeniable. However, yeah, like the innovation and good games, I think, are better than ever. And so both of those things are true at the same time, and it makes this incredibly difficult to talk about. Yeah, you look like you had something to say.
I'm not fully certain if I know exactly what he was trying to say with this. With the title being, you know, read this before you buy that video game. I don't, and then I don't think he really addresses anything about purchasing video games other than they've changed since I was a kid.
You no longer put a quarter in the machine, god damn it.
Yeah. No, and he does go into some of the economics about it, and if his goal was you know, be careful, if his goal was to tell people be careful about buying video games that are just going to be targeted towards you spending infinite money in this because that's what they want from you, then I think he lost the thread.
Okay, I think it's a fine essay. I just don't think there's anything necessarily new in here. Now, who reads the New York Times? boring people. so it's like no offense to this article was sent to us. This article was sent to us by our aunt who we love dearly.
Tyler thinks you're boring.
I read the New York Times too. I'm also boring. Okay, I read Bloomberg. Right. Okay.
I read the LA Times.
I'm also a very boring person. I just happen to like Indiana Jones a lot. That's about the only interesting thing about me. But my perfect Tuesday night is like debating who should be the designated hitter for the Yankees while they're playing in like Pittsburgh or something, like that's me. But anyway,
who's pitching? That's the question.
It was a hypothetical. It was no, because both leagues use the DH now. So.
Well, no. But who's pitching? Like, is he lefty? Is he righty?
Okay.
Yeah. What's the whole situation?
The joke's over.
You can't
just
be like, who's the designated hitter? There's depth to that question.
It's going to be Giancarlo Stanton anyway.
Yeah.
So I guess it doesn't really matter. But it's not going to be Juan Soto. We're not talking baseball. We're not talking baseball.
We could though.
No.
Dave Steve, greatest pitcher you've never heard of.
but I think it's a fine essay. And it's an introduction to something that maybe New York Times readers don't necessarily understand. And that is also a problem with games journalism is legacy outlets like the New York Times, I think, sometimes have trouble covering the games industry because their audiences do not have a frame of reference, I think, to adequately understand the games industry. I know that sounds pretentious, but I also think it's true. Because I don't know how many people that, upper middle class people that are reading the New York Times and Bloomberg and that sort of market, do they know about Disco Elysium? Do they know games like Disco Elysium exist? Or, is it more than likely they think most games are Fortnite and Roblox, the stuff that their kids play, right? And that's understandable, but that's not an accurate frame of reference. If you're talking about games as a whole, and games as a whole is sprawling, especially if you want to include mobile gaming. We're talking about an ecosystem that rivals the rainforest when it comes to complexity and species. So, but it's like if you thought the rainforest was literally just frogs, like frogs and sloths, which is amazing, but it's not accurate. So it's like there's more in there. There's Zaboomafus. I don't remember what kind of monkey Zaboomafoo was.
Lemurs.
Lemur, yeah, thank you. I like Zaboomafus, plural, better. But
next stoner prog rock band is going to be Frogs and Sloths.
Frogs and Sloths. Frogs, Sloths, and Zaboomafus. There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
They put that on a t-shirt. Slap that on a check and send it to the bank.
Yep, that's an idiom.
Anything else you would like to say here?
Okay. One thing from the article that we skipped over.
Well, I didn't want to read the whole thing.
I know,
use, and I didn't want to read the entire thing. But go ahead and read
his example of player burnout due to menial labor. Collect 20 apples, clear the swamp out of vermin, score 1,000 headshots. It's like, when was the last time this guy played a video game? Actually sat down and played a video game.
You don't think those
that's there, but that is such a small section of video games.
Oh yeah, well I think again it's like how do you explain grind to a normie audience? I think that's kind of difficult. It's like how do you explain the gameplay, the systems that. The gameplay grind.
What I'm saying is that we need to gatekeep more and keep the normies out of video games, and then we'll get back to our roots and it'll be fine.
That's a perfect idea, and I think you're correct. I think we should storm the New York Times building with ponytails ready to go.
We'll do it on January 7th.
Get away from our video games, and that's I'm just gonna have ham sandwich, just crumbs all over my shirt. And you'll have pizza.
Roast beef?
Yes. No, I think I'll go with ham this time.
Okay.
Roast beef is hot, so it gets on you.
Oh, yeah.
And it's and it's greasy. Ham, you just get ham, mayonnaise. Depending on what kind of shirt I'm wearing, maybe you throw a little bit of olive oil on there. If I don't care about olive oil stains, and I walk in, mayonnaise covering my face. Breadcrumbs Anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Cover your face.
I don't know what I'm talking about now. And
Your
they'll
face
take
covered
they'll
in
take
mayonnaise is just something directly out of an Eric J sketch.
and they'll take video games seriously. God damn it! Finally. Yeah, there's a lot more I could say about this that we've talked about a lot over the years. You know, one thing I think is interesting is, yeah, one of the reasons for this economy is that CEOs and game executives, they think about entertainment as a zero-sum game. And Strauss Zelnick says this all the time. You know, people have so many hours in the day to do a thing, to read a book, to watch a show, and we have to try and dominate those hours as much as possible. And that infects the way games are designed. The medium is the message. We have to have something that takes up time. Therefore, we're going to design things that take up time. Mechanics that take up time, you know, that infects the game design. And that is a problem. And it is a problem that we, you know, that I think an entire generation of people have grown up playing games like that. So now they expect that. We've railed against the phrase dead game and how much we hate it and how it kind of lacks nuance and can lack context and perspective. Or like or player counts, right? How that player count discussion is like a thing now. And that's all there, I think, as outgrowths of the live service economy, because live service economies require people. Well, require enough people to make a profit. It really doesn't matter how many people. If Destiny had one guy, but he was pumping in $2 million a month, they'd be fine. Well, actually, they may need to pump more in. But, and that's the thing, is a lot of this stuff about community and stuff is fake. Obviously, the developers wanted a community. I don't, you know, some artist or a community manager working at Bungie, they obviously want their work to be appreciated. But as far as CEOs go, they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit if it's 5 or 500 people. If they're making a profit, that's all they really give a shit about. So cultivating community and shit like that to them, it doesn't really matter. But anyway, yeah, I could go on all night. I'll give you the last word to say anything you want about this.
So I went off on a mental tangent because you said one guy spending $2 million a month on Destiny. I was like, what does Destiny's like annual revenue look like? And it's about 200 million. So you're not far off. They could get by with one guy spending $2 million a month. It comes down to around like 16 and 16.66 repeating million per month. But you know.
Well, good goddamn. Good goddamn. Okay, you don't have any tidbits, right?
No.
I'm gonna play the sounder anyway, just because I miss Richard. What if I told you, in this
right
world,
now,
Richard's getting ready to say
bits,
that, you know,
there
some
are
game
tids,
that was only released in
and Richard
North
is the only
Korea
man who can put them together
1978
into tidbits.
yeah. He's like, he's about to Sasuke 4, which was an RPG. Only released in North Korea, was just emulated and put on the Sega Dreamcast by a group of modders in the United States. That was Richard's made-up tidbit. Follow us, youtube.com/gamingdiscourse, patreon.com/thegamingdiscourse. We'll be back next week with Game Award takes. Go watch the review of Valley of Shadow. Hopefully an Alien Rogue Incursion review coming up soon. We'll see. And yeah,
Go watch the interview with
my interview with Professor Tori Olson, where we talk about Red Dead 2's history. And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.